the option of controlling the airspace so that barrel bombs cannot be dropped?
All the options.
What do you think of that option, sir?
Right now, Senator, for us to control all of the airspace in Syria would require us to go to war.
This is Joseph Zabrowski from Our Fathers Productions, and I'm going to share with you some information that's very important. You're going to want to listen to this, believe me. I know that there's a lot of people in America who don't know what's going on presently. Everybody's so involved with sports and what's on television and the people singing on TV and voice and all that stuff, that many Americans, although many Americans are waking up, many Americans don't have a clue as to what's going on. And it's important that you know this because your life can depend upon it, okay? Now, what I'm going to do is, up front, I'm going to give you the essentials that they're going to be talking, experts are going to be talking about later on in this video, okay? But before they talk about it, I just want to give you a visual of the essential parts that you need to know, okay? We are, the people in control of the world are seeking to bring forth World War III, okay? They are really seeking to do that, all right? And I'm going to just kind of explain what's going on so that you know, because when there's a world war, everybody, you know, is a part of it. And so basically, I want to tell it to you this way, all right? We have America here, and we have an establishment behind America here, okay? This establishment is the globalist, the people who desire a one world government, a new world order, okay? These people, when you look into their backgrounds, many of them are Luciferians. I've studied it for years, and they desire a one world government, and they want to bring forth an antichrist system, an antichrist government. And this is all related to Revelation, by the way, in the Bible. So they promote death, okay? Now, over here, and they've positioned themselves in our government because they've bought out many of our government servants, and our loyalties from our government servants go to this establishment because they give them money for their elections and so forth, and many other things. They give them gifts and financial gifts, and so their loyalties are to the establishment rather than to the people for which their loyalties should go to. Okay, so that's what's going on in America. It's been going on for quite some time. That's why you see the transformation of America. That's why you see the destruction of America, because this establishment, they need America to fall to its knees in order to usher in their one world government, because America is the so-called leader of the world, and for them to have a one world government where they are in charge, America must bow down. Well, if you know what's going on presently, like with Trump coming into the picture, Trump is starting to, you know, he's been alerting Americans to what's going on. There's been a revival in America. Many people in America are waking up. They know what's going on. They know about this establishment enemy. And now the establishment knows that many people in America have their eyes on them. Okay, so what they've done in the past, usually what the establishment does, these are the people who control most of the wealth in the world. After they're done raping a country and pillaging it for everything that it's worth, taking all of its natural resources like they've done in the Congo and Africa, after they kill enough people, and after people's eyes start opening up to who they are, what they'll usually do is create a war. In this type of situation, it's the perfect thing for them, because if they can create a war, then everybody's eyes will go off of them and go on the war, and then they can also create so much debt through the war because they'll sell military artillery, and they'll be, you know, these people just milk countries throughout the world for billions, if not trillions of dollars. When you create wars, then countries become more in debt again, and this establishment is made up of international bankers and so forth. So they always love war. War is always, history has proven, whenever the establishment is in trouble, they create a war, and that's exactly what they want right now. They want a world war against Russia. They want America to war against Russia. What's going on here is that it's common knowledge in the news that through the establishment, America funds Al-Qaeda, ISIS, ISIL, whatever you want to call them. It's all the same group. They just give different names to confuse people, okay? They want to always keep you confused so that you don't know what's going on. So America funds ISIS to the tune of billions of dollars, and ISIS is over here in Syria trying to, you know, they've killed over 300,000 Christians, and everybody wants Syria because it's one of the most desired geographical places in the world, okay? It's just geographically, everybody wants it. It's a key place. Okay, this establishment wants it, and so they're trying to destroy Syria. So instead of America going in there and taking care of ISIS, Russia does the right thing, and they go in there after 300,000 Christians have been killed, and they start destroying ISIS, and they're doing a really good job. And now that the job is just about over, the establishment wants to bring a war against America and Russia. Okay? Because what they're saying right now is that, okay, even though Russia's taking control of the situation over there, they want to make sure that they get Assad, and Russia says they'll take care of it, but the establishment doesn't believe it. And so they're communicating to America's key people that, you need to go to war with Russia. And if you've seen in the news, and I'm going to show you some of the footage in just a moment, they're trying to prime the pump right now to go to war with Russia. If you just saw this general recently come out and do this big speech about America's strong, and we're not going to take any crap from anybody, and blah, blah, blah. I'm going to show you that speech in just a moment. They're priming the pump to create another war, okay? Now, in the meantime, Russia does not want a war with America. They don't want World War III. And so Russia has gone to the UN numerous times. Now, the UN is just an entity, as I think I said earlier, it's the same people who are in the establishment. Many of those same people created the United Nations. They're one and the same, okay? This is their New World Order entity. It's one of their New World Order entities, okay? So Russia doesn't want the war, and they've gone to the UN expressing the fact that they don't want to go to war, but the UN is ignoring it because they really want the war, because remember, the establishment and the UN are one, okay? They're one and the same. And many other entities such as the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, Council on Foreign Relations, Trilateral Commission, European Union, all these entities are from the same people, the establishment. They've created all these world entities to try to take over the world. That is what's going on, okay? Now, the reason this is so important to you, and this is the essential thing that you need to understand, okay, that recently Russia has evacuated 40 million people from major cities. Now, I forgot to write in here China, terrible C, but China has evacuated millions of people from their country from major cities as well. Now, why that's so important is because, and this is the part that I want you to really understand, why that's so important is because when you evacuate that number of people, that is the prerequisite for nuclear war, because the generals have been on TV talking about it. And by the way, just so that you know, Barack Obama has gotten rid of 250 of the top military brass. He's gotten rid of like a dozen generals, great generals, so that he's replaced them all with yes men, so that they will follow whatever the establishment tells them to do. That is just a fact. Look into it yourself, okay? So these two places have evacuated millions of people, and I'm going to show you proof of that in just a moment. And the only country that's not evacuating is America. Because you see, the establishment needs to bring down America, and that's why they want to create a war. They'd love to create a new nuclear war. They would love for America to get bombed, okay? So that, because America is waking up, they're not going along with the establishment's plan, so they would love to rock America's ship and bring it down, because that would be the easiest way for them to become the New World Order, right? NWO. That would be the perfect way to bring in their Antichrist system. Now, okay, I'm going to show you something here. What I just said, I'm going to back it up. So I want you to understand that, that this is the key that I want you to understand before you listen to these experts. America is the only place that's not evacuating. These two places are evacuating the major cities. That's the prerequisite for nuclear war. And America, they're watching football, baseball, basketball, watching their TV programs, and they're just like when Hitler in World War II, when Hitler attacked a country, he always did it unbeknown to that country. They weren't ready for it. And this is the perfect recipe for the destruction of a country through war. I hope it doesn't happen. The bottom line is, our only hope is God at this point, because we have evil people in high places and in low places. And if you're not praying presently, you need to start praying, because of everything I just shared with you. But here's some other things that I want to share with you. I'm going to erase this now. Okay. Now, just type it up. Go 40 million Russians evacuate. 40 million Russians practice emergency civil defense evacuation drill. Russia begins evacuation of 40 million people in huge drill. Russia holds massive nuclear war exercise involving 40 million people. Russia to evacuate 40 million people ready for nuclear strike. and so on down the line. It's everywhere. Okay. Now I'm going to take you to the experts, and I might comment here and there, but
What about the option
I'm going
of
to take you to
controlling
that
the
right now.
airspace so that barrel bombs cannot be dropped?
All the options.
What do you think of that option, sir?
Right now, Senator, for us to control all of the airspace in Syria would require us to go to war against Syria and Russia. That's a pretty fundamental decision that certainly I'm not going to make.
So this is the psychotic disconnect of Hillary and Obama and the neocons. And again, Russia's not doing anything. They were invited in 4 years ago to try to defeat these groups. They've almost beat ISIS, and now they don't want Assad in, so they want to double cross now. And Russia's like, Assad's going to leave as soon as this is done. We're going to keep our word. Now, if Russia doesn't, then we can say, oh, that was a big lie, or maybe sanctions. But no, they want big sanctions now. Outside the UN, it's all happening. Global crisis right out of Daniel, right out of Revelations. One more clip, and I'm going to Steve Quayle of stevequayle.com. Army Chief of Staff, this is 2 days ago, Mark Milley, warned that the United States was ready to destroy its enemies and said we've never faced such a threat since World War II. Here it is.
I want to be clear to those.
I just want to tell you guys that this is one of Obama's yes men. As I was telling you earlier, he got rid of all the top military brass. So this is one of the guys that is going to go along with the globalist agenda. And so he's priming the pump to get the juices flowing in America that Russia's our enemy. Oh, we have Russia's so bad, we need to go to war. Okay.
Try to oppose the United States. I want to be clear to those who wish to do us harm. I want to be clear to those around the world who want to destroy our way of life and that of our allies and friends. The United States military, despite all our challenges, despite our op-tempo, despite everything we've been doing, will stop you and we will beat you harder than you've ever been beaten before. Make no mistake about that. Other countries, Russia, China, Iran, and North Korea, went to school on us. They closely watched how we fought in 91 and 03. They studied our doctrine, our tactics, our equipment, our organization, our training, and our leadership. And in turn, they revised their own doctrines, and they are rapidly modernizing the militaries today to avoid our strengths in hopes of defeating us at some point in the future. Recently, a senior Russian official, ambassador to the United Kingdom, Alexander Karamenko, he said, quote, "The established world order is undergoing a foundational shakeup with the Crimea, Ukraine, and Brexit." He went on to call for the dismantling of NATO and the European Union. And he said, quote, "Russia can now fight a conventional war in Europe and win. Russia is the only country that will remain relevant forever. Any other country is dispensable, and that includes the United States. We are endgame now," end quote. We can now, and we will remain in the future, retain the capability to rapidly deploy, and we will destroy any enemy, anywhere, anytime. Additionally, the battlefield will be highly complex, almost certainly in dense urban areas, and against an elusive, ambiguous enemy that combines terrorism and guerrilla warfare alongside conventional capabilities mixed with large civilian populations.
And the one part we didn't get in the clip, the full videos on Infowars.com, is Milley cautioned that the next major conflict would be lethal, highly lethal, unlike any our army has experienced, at least since World War II. And then it goes on from there. Now, here's the issue. It's our government bringing in the jihadis. It's our government funding and financing these enemies. The EU is a private corporate takeover. So what he's saying is, I work for the globalist, and if you think the UK is going to leave and Russia's going to leave, no, you're going under a global empire. We're ready to attack you. It's a very treasonous statement to imply that the EU shouldn't break up and that the UK shouldn't be free. This is globalism. Steve Quayle, epic times we're in, stevequayle.com. A guy talking about this for decades, best-selling author. Don't really need an introduction. That's a long introduction to you. But I wanted to, break down all this. What do you make of this? What are your sources saying?
Well, first of all, Alex, I've never had so many insiders trying to get the attention of the American people as in the last probably 2 weeks. Number one, let's go to the bottom line. The bottom line, there has never been a 40 million person evacuation of any country in any drill ever. I'll go on record saying this is not a drill. This is the pre-placement of a population. Now, people have got to understand something. I used to write about Russian war doctrine. Civil defense is an integral part of their plan to both survive a nuclear war and thrive after nuclear war. The population of Moscow is 12 million, so they have just basically moved close to 3 times the population of Moscow. Every subway, every underground Cold War bunker, Yamato, the mountains in the Urals, everything is on a feverish pace. When you put frontline weapons into Syria, when you put frontline weapons bordering NATO, when multiple times the Russians have demonstrated their...
And by the way, I hate to interrupt you. I'm going to give you the floor, and I'm going to skip this break. It's so important. But Steve Quill, I remember you saying 20 years ago, it just hit me when you said it, when the Russians move large populations out of their cities, which they've never done, that is a sign that they're preparing for nuclear war. And they, for the first time ever, they just did a drill of 40 million. We can't get 2 million out of the East Coast. Imagine how big that was and how pre-planned that was. Are you saying they actually stayed outside?
Well, here's the thing. It is not just a drill. And Alex, the thing that everyone's missing is China embarked on the same policy also. So the fact is that understand this. Understand a nuclear ultimatum. Let's say someone shoots the first missile, okay? The minute they make the first launch, then all hell breaks loose. But at some point, what happens when 6 cities in America, I'm just taking that arbitrary, 6 to 13 cities in America, that's not arbitrary, disappear, and quite candidly, the rest of the population is at risk. See, this is insane. Americans who are listening to this from all over the world, this is a part of war doctrine. They can shield 1/3 to 1/2 of their population. There is no shielding for the American population. Alex, you and I did the show on the Deagle survey where they said at some point 65 million people are left. But
we have no COG for local government and the citizens. It's all for the elite. Russia has it for their citizens.
My friends, this is the critical element, essential element that I wanted to share with you, what they're saying right there. America is a dead duck. All the other countries are evacuating, but America is ready to be hit. So I'm going to continue.
Right, and we have multitudes in the hundreds of thousands of foreign UN troops here, and we're looking at a bunch of, I would say this, Democrats and Republican slime that think that World War III is basically a video game with a reset. And this is the total globalist nightmare to take down the Western world and pretty much the entire world to bring about their globalist reign and rule of Antichrist, one world government, one world religion, and one world currency. So right now, what we're seeing, and by the way, the weathers that are going on, the weather warfare that's taking place on the East Coast with the skull, I think that's the mockery of the Illuminists, because obviously you've spent a lifetime doing all your videos on the skull and bones and everything that's attributed to globalists. So what we're seeing right now is a scaling up. Even Vitaly Shurkin went to the UN saying, back off, you guys, back off, you guys. I'll tell you one thing about Russia, and since I've written about their generals, I pay attention to what they say. I don't dismiss them like some Pentagon analyst or some general who's puffing up his breast. First of all, Russia can penetrate all our stealth capabilities. They've demonstrated before. Second of all, we can't do their stealth capabilities because they have a plasma absorption screen, which means that any signal sent in any frequency is automatically absorbed and does not feed back to the transmitter identifying its location. Remember, Alex, you and I did a show talking about, and you've done so many on your own, about talking about when the Russian MiGs, old technology, flew over our aircraft carriers and the pilots went inverted and flipped off the guys on the flight deck. And they did it numerous times. The Donald Cook, which was, forced to 3 times. I think it's not, I said 2. It's 3 times.
Sure, and Chinese subs popping up behind the submarines. We're clearly being set up. It's just like a lot of other people have broken down the fact that they're trying to lure them into an attack to actually take out their enemy, the American people, our local governments, and our state governments. The globalists can't bring down America, so they want a war to finally bring it down, then say all of us that are patriots against NAFTA, against CAT, against the EU, for Brexit, we're now Russian agents. It's perfect. And you heard the general say, you're a Russian agent, basically, if you're for the Brexit or the breakup of the EU, and we'll get you. He's telling that to Donald Trump, basically.
Absolutely, and they have a lot of Hellfire missiles. I want to explain something, how this will play out, because it's not just the tanks, the armored personnel carriers, all of the stuff you see on the trains across the country. We have a vast amount in underground tunnels, bases, and deep underground military bunkers, a vast amount of helicopters loaded with Hellfire missiles. So everything you have watched in the Middle East is what they plan to use here. The U.S. military has a doctrine, yard farming. That means they're going against us. So they're provoking Russia. And I can tell you this, Russian policy, every single general that's ever quoted, Medvedev, Putin, obviously, President Putin, they all have, how do they say this, reserve first strike capability. Even our nuclear war doctrine has changed. But the problem is, when you have an entire military Congress, I'm talking about the U.S., all of our battle-hardened generals, admirals have been fired, dismissed, or basically embarrassed out of their positions. The U.S. military is suffering intentional, and I'm saying this, cutoffs of ammunition. There's even cases where the Navy pulls into Hong Kong or Singapore, and they're not allowed to fuel their boats with any form of treasury instrument or anything. They have to produce either silver or gold. And that's a real, true story. So here's where we're at. We're at the escalation point. My number one goal is to warn the people as best as I can when all of the airborne command and control centers are up, the E-6s, the 747s, all the AWACS planes are up, all our sub-hunters are up.
The doomsday planes.
The doomsday planes. That's never happened before. The thing that people ought to recognize is the Twitter feed coming out of the Russian embassy. If you hear the Russian embassy is vacating or even they're threatening, then you know this thing is on. By the way, Pearl Harbor, from the time the Japanese broke off negotiations, I don't think most people recognize
1 day.
this. It was actually 30 minutes. 30 minutes.
I know they started pulling out quickly, but yeah.
Yep, but the deal is, what I'm saying is, we're the ones that broke off. Then you've got Kerry, who's absolutely in another universe, in an alternate space, in, quantum Quagmireville, basically saying that, we got to bring the Russians before the war crimes court. You kidding me?
When our government openly turned jihadis loose all over the world.
Absolutely. And here's what's thinking. Here's what people have to be thinking at this point. This is not a normal escalation of words. Stuff is moving. I got emails from Polish.
Well, what do you make of the Russians saying any aircraft enters Syria now, we're going to shoot it down? That's a no-fly zone as a response to Obama and Hillary saying we're going to start looking at shooting down aircraft. The Russians said, okay, let's get it going. This is just over-the-top insanity.
Well, it's not only that.
Where does Obama think his ESPN's going to go if there's a nuclear war?
Well, I got news for you. It'll be, where do you think the mainstream news is going to go? They'll be in bombed-out rubble platforms with no electricity, looking disheveled, and basically still preaching from their scripts when everything's gone. Look, this is crazy. People have got to understand, I think that you've got to recognize there's never been a time like this. There's never been so much voice and
why is it happening now? Because we know they're getting ready for the economic collapse. We know all these other forces are moving. Why are they starting war with Russia now?
Well, it covers up, number one, it covers up their crimes. Number two, it fulfills the thing that I think everybody's missing. The entire rearrangement of the highest command, the offices of the land, military, civilian population, everybody, they have embraced Islam. Islam demands a world war in order to bring about the Mahdi. And that's the Islamic Messiah.
And clearly they've made a deal with Islam, I guess, because there's 1.5 billion of them. That's the new operating system, because it's so satanic. Have you seen the new video we released for WorldNet Daily of them in Libya chopping up the bodies of soldiers and making people, before they execute them, eat it so they go to hell in a satanic ritual?
Well, I haven't seen that, but we watched that. Remember, about 6 months ago, they were chopping up Christians and literally hanging their remains in the meat market. I think it was in Aleppo.
And then Obama and others celebrate this. So this is about the rituals.